Welcome in, everybody. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of Jaguar Report, and with me here to my right, stage left, or I don't know how that works exactly, whatever, it's digital. Travis Holmes, Big Cat Country, coming in this week's edition of the Duval Dive. And honor, joy, and privilege, and let us be among the last to wish you a happy Thanksgiving here. Hope you had a great holiday and kept it safe and doing all of that. Yes, but Travis, glad to have you. I'll put it this way: as Duval Devout could go or should have had a nice little meal leading into Thanksgiving here this past Sunday at Everbank Stadium.
Brother, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and I just had a second Thanksgiving meal, or I should say, third overall, first of the day. I I love this time of year. I am going to be so fat, and I do hope the same is happening to all of my Jaguar fans out there, and to the team also. Hey, enjoy your time with your family and get ready to demolish this Texans team.
Hey, listen, I too will be dealing in the leftover brunch. People talk about Black Friday and all that stuff. Hey, listen, I do my shopping more efficiently on Cyber Monday, but what I will tell you is leftovers are coming. But we got to talk about the fact that the Titans were basically just leftovers when the Jags got a hold of them. Hopefully, the apps and the steeps doesn't come in throwing things off as they travel to Houston for a huge game against the Texans. But enough about that. I mean, listen, the whole situation, the Titans are having a rough year. Them shipping Byard to the Eagles earlier in the season certainly set the table to tell you that they're throwing a hat in. I talked to ESPN reporter Teron Davenport about whether or not Mike Vrabel's on the hot seat. He even says that this is the most disappointed that he's seen the organization in his, I want to say it's like 6 or 7 years there. He's been there a minute, Teron Davenport. Anyways, enough about that. With all that in mind, it wasn't a shock that the Jags took care of business. Some of us on this panel had a low-scoring game, but we were reminded that this defense is designed to crush run games, as was the arms race that we've talked about regularly on the show, Travis, to attack the Derrick Henrys of the world. And we saw that, right? I mean, you know, say what you about the line being weaker than I think it's been in some time. Having Will Levis quarterback, you know, who is basically, I would call it a kind of a glass cannon offense in that it can beat you long, but that's about the only way, you know. I mean, it's simple to say the Jags did what they were supposed to do, right?
I mean, it's simple to say it, but that's a lot of times what football can come down to is, did you do the thing did you handle business? Was this a business trip? Did you come off the plane and kick some hay and go and get back on and go back home and eat some Thanksgiving turkey? Like, did you do your job? And a lot of the time it can be as simple as that. Hey, if you won your matchups, if you did your jobs, you win the game. And the Jaguars did just that. They came in, they won really. I want to say they, at least on the defensive side, won the line of scrimmage battle. Now, the offensive side, that was some up and down there, but they schemed around any limitations they had, and it worked out beautifully. The defensive front, they got off that plane, and they dominated from start to finish. You know, Roy Robertson Harris had a day. Adam Gostis had a day. And weirdly, there was the Devon Hamilton being a healthy scratch, just to make sure that I guess he's healthier for later in the season. But nevertheless, the other interior linemen even smooth. Like, they all had solid days controlling the line of scrimmage, making, you know, earning the right to rush the passer, as we always like to say, as Mike Caldwell states every week. And those gentlemen did just that. It was a really good day from that perspective, and, you know, one-on-one tackles, leaving the linebackers clean to take Derrick Henry down one-on-one in the hole. Like that, it's a great situation for Jaguar fans, making a team that's already struggled be one-dimensional.
Well, hey, listen, let's do a little bit of show don't tell. We have the clips here. The show for those watching from the PSF app. The clips are in the chat. Feel free to observe and enjoy Travis's analysis here, accompanying that, and of course, you're watching on YouTube and all of that, You'll enjoy that as well. And if you're listening to the pod, please subscribe to the Zertopa Media YouTube channel, the Huddle Up YouTube channel, or
Right.
my socials and watch the live show or the video version of it. Those are all I have. But this is what we call a transition. I'll throw a ping in there. We had the PSF app shout out, right? But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the video show. Don't tell Travis. I mean, here's the run getting crushed as one example.
You have Roy Robertson Harris basically controlling the guard in this situation, so Derrick Henry has nowhere to go. You have Adam Gostis doing the exact same thing on the other side of the line, that tackle for a loss. Then we get the sack. Again, the same situation. Roy Robertson Harris got Smoot on the goodness gracious on the stunt. You got Josh Allen controlling the pocket, giving Levis nowhere to go. It's a great situation. Like, again, they earned the right, and they controlled this game from start to finish, basically controlling both Titan guards, both Roy Robertson and Adam Gostis. And this is just from the first series. And that's what caused that sack. So now, again, he has nowhere to go. What do you do with that? If you're a quarterback, you have to catch that ball, and that ball has to be gone right now, and he's already done. It's a wrap. That is a beautiful situation. That is exactly what Mike Caldwell looks for when he says you have to earn the right. And he wants to make you one-dimensional, and they did just that, and it was great. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I like that concept too. How it's put to earn the right to rush the passer, take away the run when they're passing. So when they're passing in the future, you can pin your ears back. And I could tell you, folks, Travis was excited about Adam Gotsis on the film. So we did what we could to make sure Adam Gotsis his powers on the show here today. Dad joke approved. Hey, listen, families in town, they've been flying. Okay, what can I say? But with all that in mind, I mean, listen, from the Titans' perspective, I don't know. Like you said, the offensive line is completely broken down, and everything that I basically said on the Student of the Game back in late August is kind of holding true. Even and then also at the time surrounding, more specifically at the time surrounding, DeAndre Hopkins' arrival, you put a racing in Pinto, and that was before the front end got smashed and Tannehill ended up on the sideline. And now you got Will Levis. I mean, listen, you could say what you want about the quarterback who our good friend, the General Mike Patton, has dubbed the mayonnaise messiah, but apparently the Jags O-line went absolutely bananas on that backfield. Yeah, I'm making coffee and food preference jokes today, folks. Food is to Thanksgiving. I'm not going to silence that. What would you really add here for the defense? I mean, I feel like, well, let me add this. You felt like there was a couple dropped interceptions too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that's the rough one. I mean, they are defensive backs, and again, I would never demean my fellow defensive backs. You know, I'm a DB at heart. That's what it is. But normally most DBs aren't catching every ball that hits their hands, or the majority of balls that hit their hands. So that's unfortunate, because that's what you need to be, you know, the top team in turnovers in the NFL, which the Jaguars were and have been for a good portion, you know, of this later part of the season. But nevertheless, when the ball does hit your hands, you can capitalize. That's how you're going to beat those top tier teams, those top 3-4 teams when you start playing against, you know, this playoff football scenario. So this is last week was a good practice week to, you know, try to get on that jugs machine before practice, get on that jugs machine during the Thanksgiving break with the kids outside, whatever it is, because it's coming, and we really do hope that, you know, moving forward that we can turn those PBUs into INTs.
Yeah, no, and I find it kind of amazing that even with a week without a takeaway, and that would be 2 weeks ago at this point, in the 49er game, they're still second in the NFL, right behind, ironically, the 49ers. That's just an amazing defense. And that's after 10 games, by the way. That is not counting the Seahawks game, which I wanted to say to everybody. I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. But this isn't a show. Anyways,
I think it makes people feel better about that Jaguars loss, seeing what they're doing to everybody else, though. The 49ers loss, seeing what they're doing pretty, you know, religiously now to everyone. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, people were freaking out too about, you know, the whole situation. Well, they just lost 3 games. Yeah, well, Trent Williams missed a lot of time. Mr. Williams is back, ladies and gentlemen, and the emphatic statements being made and what Chase Young has done and has continued to be doing in supplement is awesome. So there's all of that. But enough about the 49ers. We need to talk about another awesome football team. I know I usually spend a lot more time talking on the previous week. I should say we spend a lot more time talking about the previous week. Well, you know what? There is one more thing I want to bring in. Before we jump to the Texans, the correlation between Calvin Ridley doing well and Zay Jones being on the field is notable, and not just because it's weird. Like I don't feel like Zay Jones. I'm not saying he had a good or a bad game or anything like that. Like not necessarily putting up big stats doesn't mean a receiver had a bad game. They could just be part of a game plan. We talked to Calvin Ridley after the game in the locker room, and he had said he felt like he was going to have a big week just because in practice he had a lot of attention, was seeing the ball a lot, was involved a lot in the action and the preparation. That kind of gave him an indicator that he could come out big, and he absolutely did. I would argue this has been his. I won't say it's been his best game because the Titans, aren't a super tough opponent, but this is certainly his best game in some time. Meanwhile, Zay Jones only had 20 yards receiving on 4 catches, right? So, that's not. But there's something weird. Well, let's put it this way: for as many games as Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley only has one game or one touchdown, period, in games without Zay Jones. All the rest of them, Zay Jones has been on the field. It's the strangest thing to me.
Well, it's not that strange. Like a lot of people are always they're throwing out these advanced stats, they're throwing out these advanced numbers and saying that the Jaguars only use Calvin Ridley in this X spot, nearly 90% of the time. They weren't motioning him out, they weren't putting him into the inside spot in the bunch sets, all the things that The Athletic had a great breakdown 3 weeks ago talking about how the Jaguars were using Calvin Ridley in a quote unquote static way, in a non-moving way, and a lot of that really came down to Zay Jones not being there. And it's not even about Calvin Ridley. It was about the fact that that third receiver, whether it's Jamal Agnew, whether it's Elijah Cooks, whether it's Tim Jones, whoever it may be, is just less versatile than Zay Jones in being able to be that X. And so Zay being back allows the team to put Calvin Ridley more in that Kirk role a few times per game, and they don't lose the speed on the outside. So it allows him better matchups against the linebackers, against safeties. It gives him less bump and run coverage, which we know he kind of can struggle with because he's just a smaller receiver. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of also why Kirk's day was a little bit quieter in the game, because he took those 3-4 plays that may have been Kirk, long catches, and turned those into longer catches or touchdowns. And that's kind of it's a good situation when for sure Zay's going to be in the lineup all week, because it helps their installation period when they're, if you don't know he's going to be there, you kind of have to plan around him not being there, and it messes up with what you can do with everyone surrounding him, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think with Kirk's performance on the day, there was kind of I don't want to say he had a bunch of drops or anything like that, but let's just to him didn't end up delivering. And on Ridley's second, he had told us after the game that play was kind of designed to go with Kirk, but they covered Kirk. And when the decoy man is open, hey, sometimes you can still score the dang touchdown. That is what it is. A little bit of more show, don't tell. Let's see some of the stuff that Calvin Ridley did throughout the game here against the Titans. Travis, I like that you include this, but I think this is the play we're talking about, matter of fact. So there you go.
Right. That play was actually for Kirk. And that was actually the first touchdown, because on the first touchdown, they put him in a stack set. But because the Titans didn't bump and run Ridley, it allowed Ridley a free release off the line touchdown. That was like cake. And they did it a lot in this game. And I think they just need to do it moving forward and make them choose between Kirk and Ridley. And that's going to be a really tough spot for a defense. You want to double Ridley? Fine. We'll just eat you up with Kirk all game. Or you want to leave Ridley one-on-one like this? Well, that's fine. We'll just eat you up with Ridley all game. Like, make them choose, and whichever way they choose, they'll be wrong. Like that's a great situation. And again, this is Ridley from the slot going across the screen. Make them make the safety choose, and no matter who they choose, they're wrong.
Yeah, that is the goal, right? If they can choose whoever they want. Really, it comes down to the choice that Trevor makes throwing the ball. And if Lawrence is, if it's easy for Lawrence to say, I want that one, and it's wide open. Yeah, I mean, that's not tough to do. By the way, I love how you snuck the reverse in there. I really like that. That was a little shake 'em up, razzle dazzle that the Jags threw in there to kind of accent and if nothing else, it gives something for D'Amico Ryans and company to look for in their preparation leading up to this week's game in Houston. And let's get into that track. First of all, game's obviously huge upcoming, right? This is a key element of how the AFC South is going to go, assuming there's no catastrophe to finish out the rest of the season here. No injuries or anything like that upcoming. Because listen, at the end of the day, there's 7 more weeks,
right?
And all of these games, or I should say all these games, this particular game is going to basically impact the importance of all the rest of them for the decision on the AFC, right? I mean,
that's fair. Yeah, that's pretty fair. And the main thing that rests on this is less about going to the playoffs because, and I believe John Shipley originally posted the what was it, New York Times playoff, what was it called, playoff simulator, and it basically showed that the Jaguars' chances of making the playoffs are 96% if they win this game this week versus 81% if they lose. But it's really coming down to, most importantly, hosting the wild card game. Like, if the Jaguars lose this week, they have a much lower chance of actually winning the AFC South and hosting a wild card game. It's at 42% if they lose, but it's at 79%, basically 80% if they win. So nearly, close to double their chances of hosting a wild card game if they win this week. So in that way, it's important. And it may not even be important to some other people because, that some people don't think the Jaguars should be playing at home, depending on how you feel about it, because how they have played historically this year, I should say, at home. So that's the big give and take. But so in that way, it is a really important game, for the soul of the AFC South.
Well, yeah, the soul of the AFC South. I like that. I might have to steal that on my next article, Jaguar report. Bing! Which, by the way, I will be working on during me and or I should say, Travis and I, doing the watch along here on the Pro Sports Fans app. So check that out as well. As for the Texans here, I think what is the big thing that must happen, that must occur for the Jags to not repeat? Like, for one, I'm pretty sure we can take another fullback kick return for a touchdown off the table. I feel confident that Darius Williams won't, turn his back or not be paying attention, for Tank Dell to make him pay. I think little things like that will be better. But I guess the main question is offensively, because the Jags came out flat against the Texans in Everbank 2 months ago when they played at week 3. What would you say they need to do different, or were they?
Well, that's it. Well, that's the curious thing, because the problem with that Texans game is, you remember, Zay Jones also didn't play, and that was the Jaguars still trying to pivot and figure out what to do with that offense. That was kind of the start of that skid with the offense. So if we want to give San Francisco the out, I guess I'll call it, of saying, hey, these guys went on a 3-game skid. They were trying to figure themselves out offensively. All right, then I want to, in that same way, give the Jaguars their same opportunity, their same out, and say, hey, they were trying to figure out what was going on with Zay Jones, and that was the start of their offense being really up and down, because we were happy with the offense the first game and a half, other than that, Kansas City game was kind of offensive line struggled, whatever.
But the difference between the Niners skid and what the Jags did after that game at Everbank, the defense stepped up and just were a colossal entity, planting Desmond Ridder, making Justin Allen feel all scared of Justin Allen all over again. How much this defense has been, like, there's a reason why I've written at least 2 articles giving the defense their flowers so far on Jaguar Report. Bing! Yeah. But this is why you're constantly putting out articles surrounding the injury status of Tyson Campbell. Bing! Because their ability to win games should the offense falter has been so huge this season. The 3 games
Right.
where the Niners got involved, all the jokes at Nick Bosa's expense. That's why they went and got Chase Young and addressed it. The offense hasn't had to, or the offense hasn't had to be bailed out yet because Trent Williams got healthy. But if they do, they augmented that. Now, I know the Jags didn't do anything in the offseason, but getting Zay Jones back
Getting Zay back. Bingo.
is a big deal. And listen, I don't want to go into too much detail, but let's just say certain pending off the field conversations may put them right back in that situation, and they need to be ready.
Yeah. Well, so to the original point, or to the original question, I should say, you asked basically what should the Jaguars offense do differently, and I think just by knowing for sure that Zay will be available this game is going to allow them the ability to do more of what they did this past week against the Titans, and actually scheme for the different varying weaknesses of the Texans as far as their defense is concerned, because they are also missing Jimmy Ward, and they have been for a few weeks now.
Right.
The Houston defense, they did get Stingley back because he was on IR in the week 3 game when the Jaguars played against the Texans the first time. So
I think they have Tunsil back too.
Did they get Tunsil back?
I think he's back this week. I could be wrong, but yeah. Anyways, that's not the defense. Keep going.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool. But no, nevertheless, it's a defense that was kind of struggling towards the middle of the season, and they actually got a little bit better, a little bit stronger as far as the passing game is concerned. Nevertheless, if the Jaguars can scheme that number 2 and that number 3 guy, that to me leads to this being a Zay Jones week or a Christian Kirk week. And again, we've talked about this in past episodes and past streams, everything else. You just know walking into the game where the serious weak spots are and who's going to show up in those situations based on this is how this team's going to likely play the Jaguars. Dope. So we know walking into this that this is more likely than not going to be a Zay Jones week. And I'm talking like a 2-touchdown Zay Jones week, just because Stingley's going to win some of his battles versus Ridley, and Ridley may win some of his battles versus Stingley. But missing their free safety has been sort of detrimental for the Texans defense so far. And he was a did not practice on Thanksgiving. So it sounds like he's more likely than not going to miss this week also.
Yeah. Well, that's the injuries that the Texans have had to deal with have just been numerous. But by the same token, they haven't seemed to matter so much. I mean, the play of CJ Stroud, you and I had the conversation, back after we observed this first game. Heck, I think I said it in the press box, to myself, like, you're going to be seeing, if you are a member of the Duval, you're going to be seeing CJ Stroud for an extended period of time, for at least 10 more games, probably more, because they play twice a year, blah, 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 blah. And don't be surprised if, this roster isn't kept up to snuff once some certain salary cap chickens come home to roost, that the Texans will be in the conversation as the team to beat in the AFC South. I wouldn't be surprised if that somehow came to pass for the upcoming season, depending on how certain contract things go for the Jags. Like, this is a really good quarterback. There's a reason why he seems to be a shoe-in for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and now he's even in MVP conversations, Travis. So I have, that's something that I'll have to be made aware of. And I'll ask this, but for all the go ahead, Travis.
No, but and I actually do agree with you. But the more tape we get, and I said this early in the season to Mike Patton, the same Mike Patton you referenced earlier from touring the AFC South, is the more tape teams, the more tape we get on CJ Stroud, the more we start seeing those chips in the armor. And that's these guys are paid to watch tape. They're made to counter. They're made to make adjustments. That's literally their job. Mike Caldwell is he's shown this year to be one of the best at finding a team's weakness and trying to exploit that. Well, CJ Stroud has struggled this past 2 weeks with throwing balls into other teams' hands. Let me just say it in that way. Whether or not they picked him is another conversation, but he has given up nearly 11 turnover-worthy plays in the past 3 games. It was 1 interception again. It resulted in 1 interception against Cincinnati. Should have been 2. It resulted in 3 interceptions against Arizona, and it should have been 4. Like, these are great opportunities for the Jaguars defense. The defense we know is prone to intercepting the ball, to forcing turnovers. They will have their opportunities. The question of the hour is whether or not they're going to catch them or they're going to turn those into PBUs like we talked about. If they can catch them, hey, man, we got a different game on our hands.
Well, right. And you mentioned that. First of all, I think you just made a defense for some guys to go Iron Man to improve the Cardinals offense, but that's another question. What I think we're getting to here then is and I have no reason to believe that D'Amico Ryans and his staff would ask CJ Stroud or would scheme CJ Stroud to be any more conservative or safe, because he's got to play through these mistakes and get better and learn. And I guess that's the part that'll be tested. So the Jags have an opportunity as a team who is number 2 with 20 takeaways, right behind San Francisco. I think it's 21-20. But they have the opportunity to redeem this game, which is just so epic towards the outcome of this contest, and to make sure that the Texans don't have the tie break. Because the point you've made often on social media with your at Travis D. Holmes Twitter account, is that the Texans' schedule is a bit, I would say, is pretty easy compared to what the Jags have. Now, granted, Joey being out for the year for the Bengals is an issue. That part of it got easier. That's a Monday night game. They'll even have another day to prepare for Jake Browning. Okay. And that also leads to the short week. I think after that is the short week to Baltimore. I'd have to look that up. But the punchline is, even with that Bengals game becoming easier, it's still pretty clear that the Jags have a relatively easy schedule. And the short week, they play the AFC North teams back to back to back. So it's after the game this weekend, it's Bengals, Browns, Ravens. That's a tough little gauntlet of games, Travis Holmes. But after that, it gets more easier. We'll worry about that problem. I'll put it this way. If the Jags see 2-2 in the next 4 weeks starting tomorrow, if I'm a member of the Duval Devout, I'm making fun of Kyle and saying, see, we told you 13 wins,
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that general thought process, but that can't be the goal. That can't be the goal. That can't be the goal, because the Texans absolutely can still go 3-1 in that time frame, and that's heck, they may even after the Jaguar game they could even go 4-0, and that's the big piece.
I assumed part of the 2-2 would be reinstating. I shouldn't say reinstating. Let's say splitting with the Texans, right? So assuming they split with the Texans, if they go 2-1. Which would the assumption would be that they would only win that Monday night game at Everbank, hosting the Bengals.
All right.
If that's what happens, that's not a bad little stretch. They still have plenty to work with, I think.
No, that's right. That's fair, and that would still have them winning the AFC South more likely than not. I mean, you can't ever say what's going to happen for sure with Texans.
They have 10 wins is my point. Like, if they win tomorrow and they go 1-2, or if they go 1-2 for the rest, if they go 1-2 for the rest, they got 10 wins at that point.
Right.
Because Matt,
10 wins gets you in the playoffs. 10 wins may or may not win the AFC South, which is just a wild statement to say. You would have said that in the preseason.
I just realized I said it backwards. Let me try that again. If they win against and go 2-1, that's 10 wins right there. I said 1-2. Yeah. If they go 2-1 after that, that's 10 wins right there. That's that 81% playoff percentage thing you were talking about earlier.
I got you.
But even then, that point, are you that worried about the Bucks, Panthers, and then
no, by no means.
Yeah, the Jags are playing the Titans for the division. I think they're going to handle business, just like it kind of happened last year.
Yeah, but it barely happened last year. Can we call that a spade? Can we tell the truth? Yeah. I just want to say I don't want it to come down to the last game of the season. I want my team to be rested and not and sitting any guys who have any small chinks or minor injuries or whatever else. I want them to be fresh as can be and ready to go. FYI, I thought something was really interesting, knowing that the Texans run the San Francisco offense, or a lot of the similarities to the San Francisco offense. Mike Caldwell might have been one of the first coaches that I've seen do this, and now I've seen teams do it now against 49ers 2 weeks straight. When they, well, say like the Seattle Seahawks ran three safeties for the majority of the game against San Francisco. I thought that was really curious. I'm like, wait a minute, is he taking this from Mike Caldwell? All right, so it was a coverage bust that resulted in a Kittle touchdown doing that three safety look, but I believe we're going to see more of that in against this Texans team because they're going to run a lot of the same things, and we didn't do that in week 3. And I'm just curious to how CJ Stroud's going to react to that because there was something again I've now seen two teams do against San Francisco, and sometimes works, sometimes not. But it seems to be the counter to the way that they run offense since they like to use the fullbacks and the tight ends, the blocking tight ends in the passing game. They kind of it's going to be a very interesting thing. I hadn't even thought about it, and then I watched the Seahawks 49ers game, and I'm like, oh, they're doing the same thing. All right, Mike Caldwell, I see you, man. The other teams copying you. Okay.
But does Mike Caldwell have the DB and safety core to run defense like that and be effective? That would be the question I would have.
I mean, this is the second time this year we've seen him run it, though. I mean, he ran it against Atlanta, which I thought was just a weird one, but maybe because he knew they were going to run the ball a lot more. And he did it obviously against San Francisco, and we thought it was working for a second until it wasn't for the long touchdown. But so maybe I have a feeling that they're going to probably end up doing a lot of that again, running a lot of cover one, just with the three safety look, just to get another stronger tackler in the box versus having another DB. Less Trey Herndon, maybe more Wingard, so we'll see, or maybe more Dewey. But I thought that was really curious because, again, just watching another NFL game against a team we had already played, and it's something I hadn't seen teams do against them. And I'm like, all right, that's dope. Way to go, Mike Caldwell. Tip of the cap.
Oh, hey, listen, hey, I would, if I didn't have my head, I would even do the backward cap. Sure, but. So we're at that stage of it, Travis. What do you see happening in this week's game as we lead into the watch along with the Duval Dive Live?
Bro, I see the Jaguars giving Jacksonville Jaguar Duvalians, the Duval devout, a lot of things to be thankful for. I see them boys coming out and winning 37-24.
That's okay. That's a high scoring affair you got there. I'm not mad at it. I think you got a turnover baked in there somewhere, which is 37-24, 2 score. I don't dislike it. I'm not quite as optimistic on the scoring as you are. I think it's going to be a 30-23 affair. I think it's going to be closer played. I think CJ Stroud is going to at most have a single turnover. Let me just say the Texans at most are going to have a single turnover. But I think the Jags take care of it. I think they make fewer mistakes. I think they're going to come in and with the kind of focus that you saw after the big Lions blowout last year during that run of games where they ended up taking the division. I think we're not to say that these are the same thing, but I think we're seeing that kind of mentality. And actually, I can say live here as we're going, I saw you John Shipley tweeting from the availability today that it seems like Tyson Campbell's hamstrings improving, but we're not sure exactly if we're going to see.
Seeming unlikely to be active for the game. So more more Monteric Brown, maybe more Greg Jr. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, and no offense to those guys, but Campbell coming back for the Texan game would have been huge. But hey, that is what it is. Hey, at least in the meantime, you don't have to worry about facing Joey Burr upcoming without Tyson Campbell. Hey, maybe he'll be back for Lamar Demetrius Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens in a couple weeks too. I'm not really as worried about whoever the Browns are playing at quarterback this week, but we can analyze that roulette wheel next week on that edition of the Duval Dive. But in the meantime, Travis, tell the world where you can be found, please.
I can be found on all the socials at Travis D. Holmes, whether that's Twitter, X, your mama's Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You got
tell the world you're on X because people will think you're doing something illegal. Just say Twitter.
Hey man, that sounds like a personal problem. If that's how they want to view that, then I don't know.
Well, this is the problem with being a medium. I have to be honest. I got that from Joel Klatt. I don't want to tell everybody I'm on X. It just sounds
Well, hey, at the end of the day, hey, this is what it is. These are the new names we have to go by. I am sorry. I am on X. Now take that as you will. So it's Thanksgiving. We all are around family. Okay. So you can find me at Travis D Holmes on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, etc. You can find my writings of covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on BigCatCountry.com. You can find me here on Duval Dive on the PSF app and on our Satobia Media, YouTube, on our Facebooks, on our socials, live every Friday at 11 a.m. You can also find me on South Florida Tribune's Inside the Pigskin every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And I think that will do it. I look forward to seeing you guys on the live stream on this Sunday at 1 p.m. on the PSF app. It's going to be a fun time.
Listen, great times all the way around. By the way, somebody get Travis some eggnog as soon as possible so he can have something else other than X to cope with his family members. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Threads as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the Jaguar Report. With my good friend John Shipley. Thank you for live tweeting and being awesome in that way to provide that little bit of information about Tyson Campbell. Also, my work with the 3-point conversion. See some of my locker room interviews from Everbank Stadium on the 3-point conversion YouTube channel. Some of my Orlando Magic stuff there too that I do as well with A7BN Sports. Also up there as well. And then, of course, tomorrow, if you're watching this live stream Friday, theoretically, tomorrow at noon at FBC Morgan Stadium, aka the Bounce House, I will be covering UCF football with the Black and Gold Banneret. And as Travis mentioned on Saturday, we'll be doing the Duval Dive live on the Sports Fans app. So check that out. Get the PS. If you don't have the PSF app, get a hold of your life. Anyways, no, check that out there too. And also, every Friday we also have this show, but on Wednesday night at 8:40 p.m. Eastern, Student of the Game podcast is a thing that goes down to take care of your sporting needs. I even pre-recorded the Orlando Sentinel's Matt Murschel, Travis, so there would be some college talk while I at the Orlando Magic battling the Denver Nuggets. So I do things anyway.
All the things.
Listen, may your travels be safe as you do battle to attempt to get your early Christmas shopping done. And oh, by the way, don't forget you can check us out also not only on the 3-point conversion iHeartRadio channel, but you could check out the Duval Dive just before you're getting into the game there on Saturday. It goes from 12 to 2 on oldschool101.com. There we go. We're a lot of places, Travis. So don't say you couldn't find us. You just didn't. Anyways, for Travis Holmes, quick shouts out to Justin and Winder, also on the PSF app. Thank you for checking in there as well. For Travis Holmes, this is Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until next time, class dismissed.
Yes.